The state election on the 24th of March is vitally important to Queensland nurses and midwives from a number of perspectives. As workers, it's really important that you know where the political parties stand on industrial relations policies and their track record in that area. This is really important given that we currently haven't got a deal with Queensland Health for EB8. We weren't able to finalise that before government went into caretaker mode, so we really do need to know where they stand on finalising an agreement as quickly as possible. And no matter who gains power on the 24th of March, we will be continuing to exert pressure to make sure we get the best deal possible in the quickest possible time from the government that's in power. We're making a great effort to keep members informed of the health developments during the election campaign. We organised a forum on the 8th of March where we invited the Health Minister, the Opposition Health Spokesperson and the health spokespersons from the Qatar Australia Party and the Greens. We gave you the opportunity to ask them the questions that you wanted answered. It was really important we did that because health has been rather a small target in this state election campaign, and we got some great responses from those that were present. It's also the case that members are really concerned about what's happening interstate in New South Wales and Victoria. We've been keeping members appraised of developments down there and the battles that our colleagues are fighting in those states. It's vitally important that you get to hear this because the changes that have happened in New South Wales and Victoria weren't flagged before the last state elections down there. This underscores the importance of ensuring that we know not only the policy but the track records of the parties that are actually seeking your vote on the 24th of March.
2010 election that we had, we were under the impression that from our coalition's pre-election statement that they would not be touching our nurse-patient ratios. So we were under the impression that we wouldn't have to fight anything like what we've had to fight this time around. We thought that it'd be a couple of weeks like every other EBA fight that we've had, but unfortunately it's now lasted I think almost 9 months. In all my EBAs that we've had to fight, this is about my 5th or 6th, we have always had Labor, except for Kennett, which was a total disaster and he was a Liberal. Our Labor government have been certainly difficult. We've had to fight them for a few weeks, and a few weeks we've had the discussions and negotiations and everything's all over and set and done. We're all back at work doing the jobs that we love. This time around we've had a Liberal government as our Premier, and we have had the hardest, longest battle that's ever occurred for nurses. Certainly back in '86 they had the strike, but that lasted 56 days. We have been fighting Liberal government now for 9 months. It's not just the time, it's just the way that they've actually been treating us as nurses. They've refused to do a lot of negotiations throughout the 9 months that we've been fighting. There's been ample opportunity presented from the ANF and the nurses to say, well, let's even try this, let's try that, let's even go into voluntary arbitration. That was like almost 130 days ago, and continually the government refused and refused and refused and just kept pushing our buttons pretty much.
Nurses united will never be defeated! Nurses united will never be defeated!
I'm aware that the promises politicians make when they're in opposition and when they're running for election are not necessarily commitments that they intend to keep.
And there was no indication prior to the 2010 election that this is what would actually happen. And it's certainly been a shock to all nurses here, and I think to the community as well. I think the Victorian public have certainly been well behind us in our fight, and have certainly seen a different side to the Liberal government.
Prior to the last election, the now Premier of Victoria said that he had a commitment to ratios, safe staffing levels, and I had no idea at that time that the government would take this kind of approach to industrial relations with nurses. We don't have a nursing shortage in Victoria. We have a younger average age than the country as a whole. And although the Liberal Party cut funding for over 500 graduate nurse positions this year, up until that point we had no trouble attracting and keeping young nurses in the workforce. To my colleagues in Queensland, I would say that I would be inclined, if you've got an agreement coming up during the candidature of the current election, of looking at the track record of the party that you vote for and not just what they say they'll deliver.
Ask their politicians what they stand for, ask them to get it in writing, and then vote appropriately.
From our experience of politicians and the change of government in Victoria, you've really got to be aware of what your politicians say they're going to do and make sure that those things are clearly stated, and make sure also that you're ready to persevere in all those directions.
No matter what they say before the election, what's important is what they do afterwards. So don't judge them on what they say, judge them on what they've done in the past, and find out what their real positions are.
Well, I'm very inspired by the movement here in Victoria at my place in Warrnambool. We had 25% of the workforce that walked out. And solidarity will win. And as Bill Shorten says, you just have to go one day longer. So stay resolute in your cause and make sure that you have the numbers to go with you.
The fight is hard, sometimes the fight is long, but the fight is worth it. We know that what we are talking about is the safety and the health of all our friends and all our colleagues, and we just have to do what has to be done to keep that going. So, like I say, the fight is hard, but it's worth it.
You've now heard from our colleagues in Victoria about important and worrying developments for the nurses and midwives. It's important that you take these into consideration when you cast your vote on the 24th of March. Ensure that you make your vote count. Make your vote count to protect your rights at work. Make your vote count to ensure that you help keep nursing and midwifery strong.